Welcome to the speaker series on a shot glass of recovery.
Yeah. You get a house, you get a car, then you start thinking that's all you are, but you don't know the truth. So let me spell it out for you. Now I got your attention, now there's a start. Now sit and listen to my favorite part. Life's been giving us some clues. The answer lies inside of
I am Lisa, the host of A Shot Glass of Recovery, and this is our speaker series. Let's sit back and get ready for some more experience, strength, and hope.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much. My name is Elle and I'm an alcoholic. It's a massive honor and a privilege to be here. I say that, and when I work with sponsees, I show them in the book where it says that as well. It says it in the doctor's opinion, and it also says it in Bill's story. He says that it's a privilege to speak to the other alcoholics in the hospital, and it truly is, because without our whole, without our I've lost what I'm saying before I started. Sorry. It's our principle, isn't it? One alcoholic working with another alcoholic. That's how we work. If I was to tell somebody on the outside, like a normal person, what my thoughts were, I'd be in a straitjacket by midnight, that's for sure. So it's that's how the program works. And what it says at the end of Bill's story, this conversation in the kitchen echoes throughout the world. That touches my heart so incredibly. Every time I work with my sponsees, I always think back to Bill and Bob and how this all began from this conversation. And I think Bill himself talks about this cosmic sequence of events that occurred for us to even be sitting here right now. It's just such a miracle. It's a miracle that I'm sitting here, selfishly. It is a miracle that I'm even sitting here today, because alcoholism very, very nearly killed me. I'm so incredibly lucky to be alive. So I won't go too much into the past, but I will share my experience, strength, and hope with you. What I was like, what happened, and what I'm like now. I'm so grateful to have 45 minutes, because I've had quite an explosive way into recovery, and on the other side. So I'm normally trying to squeeze it into 15 minutes, and I can hardly get enough out that I'd love to. So I was born into quite a normal childhood, I would say. My mum left my dad when I was 2 years old because he was an alcoholic, and I grew up in a very strict kind of household. Just my mum and my dad, and there was no alcohol, no cigarettes, no drugs, not even any swearing. My mum thought crap or bloody was a swear word. So, that's the kind of household I was growing up in. I was an only child, so I was absolutely spoiled. I was spoiled, not with money, because we didn't have much money. My mum worked really, really hard. She did the best she could with what she had. And she really, truly did. She worked really hard. And I was able to have things like ballet lessons and tap lessons and stuff. But we weren't rich. We were very, very poor. But she worked that hard to give me all of those opportunities. So I believe I had a wonderful childhood. I really do. When I was 11, I had my first blackout. Now, I didn't know it was a blackout at the time. I only found out when you guys told me what a blackout was, and I was like, oh, and I'd been having them half of my adult life. I didn't realize. So the thing is, we had got this. What we would get the older kids to buy us a bottle of White Lightning. Now, it's not what it is in America. White Lightning over here is like an alcoholic cider that's never met an apple, basically. And we had a 2-liter bottle of that, and it was to see us through the whole night. But not normally, but once in a while when we did this, we'd get a liter each, and it would last us the whole night. But I must have had most of that 2-liter bottle. Then we ended up drinking something called, I think it's called WD 2020 or MD 2020, one of those sparkly things that's all different colors. I don't know what it was, but I just remember that I drank some, and I was face down in the mud. Now, I didn't know it was a blackout because I was face down in the mud and it was raining, so this older boy picked me up and put me under the bomb shelter so that I didn't drown, or because I was walking across this little bridge and it had no sides and I thought that was dangerous. And this lady, this very posh lady, took me home in a sports car. She had a home which had gates, and it was something else. The reason I found out that it was a blackout is because my mum said that when she got home, I came downstairs to open the door for her, And I had no recollection of that. So the next day, I was quite a smart child, and the next day I went to school and I asked the teachers whether it's possible for an 11-year-old girl to have short-term temporary brain amnesia. I mean, God knows what the teachers were thinking was going on at home. But anyway, that's why I know it was a blackout, and I have had most of my adult life has been in blackout. You also taught me about geographicals, and most of my adult life has been in geographicals as well. So we moved to America when I was 11, 12 years old, and that was fine. We lived in Salem, Massachusetts, beautiful place, and I managed to not get up to too much trouble. We were deported when I was 13 or 14, and I'm good at getting deported, let's put it that way, but I hadn't done anything wrong at that time, obviously. And when we got back, a mistake was made in terms of person of authority, shall we put it that way, came into my life, and he was supposed to be a father figure, or he was supposed to be a stepfather figure. And what he did was he abused me sexually, physically, emotionally, mentally, all the ways that a grown man could abuse a young girl. I was 14, 15, 16 at the time, is what he did to me. Now, the reason I mention this is not so much, I don't see it as an outside issue as to the reason I thought that I became an alcoholic. So I actually believed that a a human person, could make me be an alcoholic. I didn't understand at the time what alcoholism was. So the reason I thought that he made me an alcoholic is because he would take me to the shops, take money from my mum to buy me candy. Yeah, you know what that story. And he would actually buy alcohol and get me to drink it. So it would be like a half a bottle of whiskey. He'd get me to drink that straight in the park, or really strong lagers, like 8, 9%. Or even like overproof Jamaican Ray and Nephew's rum, 62.8%. You see, I know the percentage because I'm a genuine alcoholic. But yeah, he would get me to drink these things. And so I thought, because he's the person that introduced me to alcohol, he's the one who forced me to drink alcohol at times, he spiked my drinks many times. I thought that was the reason that he made me an alcoholic. And also, when the ish, shall we say, hit the fan and things became very, very dangerous, like grave, basically, I left home and I left school, and I was 15 at the time. And I went to work in the red light district of London, Soho. And I didn't have to do anything. All I did was sit there on the reception and let guys in, and I got paid a fortune for it. But I started drinking as a coping mechanism, and so that was obviously all of his fault as well, right? So he introduced me to alcohol, he forced me to drink, he got me to drink, and then once I managed to get out of that situation, I drank as a coping mechanism. Well, I now know that drinking as a coping mechanism doesn't necessarily make a person an alcoholic. There's a lot of people out there that drink as a coping mechanism, right? Someone might have a bad day at work. They might go home and drink a whole bottle of wine. But you know what? They get up the next day and they go back to work. They look after the kids and they carry on with their families and their lives, right? It's not, they don't have too much to drink one night and then lose their job, lose their family, lose their children, lose their life. That's not what a normal person does. But an alcoholic will, and I will. So basically, I understand now that I'm an alcoholic because I have a mental obsession. I have a mental obsession that compels me to drink, and I have a body that compels me to die. So this mental obsession, I cannot stop thinking about drinking, not drinking. I just cannot stop thinking about the drink. I cannot stop obsessing about alcohol. I'm absolutely obsessed until I can again experience that sense, you know? Until I can experience that sense of ease and comfort. I'm not happy, I'm restless, I'm irritable, I'm discontented. I can't live life without the drink. I can't do it. So that phenomenon of craving that I get, as I said, I've got the mind that compels me to drink and a body that compels me to die. Because once I've got that drink in me, I cannot stop for anyone or anything, and people tell me I'm allergic to it. Allergic? Are you mental? How can I be allergic to something I absolutely crave, love, admire, would do anything for? You know, I'd give up everybody for alcohol. I did give up everybody for alcohol. I'll give up everything for alcohol. So how are you telling me I'm allergic to it? That makes no sense at all. Until you told me that what an allergy is an abnormal reaction. Okay, fine. Now I get it. I have an abnormal reaction to alcohol because if I have one drink, I need 6. If I had 6 drinks, I need 12. Nothing will ever quench my thirst. As soon as I put a drink in me, I get so unbelievably thirsty that I cannot ever quench that thirst. So I've got the mental, the physical, and of course I've got the spiritual. So I also have a spiritual malady, which is not necessarily diagnostic of being an alcoholic, but of course the spiritual experience, the spiritual awakening is there to address. So there I am. Basically, I'm stuffed, right? I've got the mind that compels me to drink, I've got the body that compels me to die, and I've got the spiritual malady. So I was going around living my life with all of these things with no idea that's what was going on in here, in here, in here. I had no idea. So I was living a pretty good life to begin with. I was young, I was free. They say we live our life forwards and then we think it backwards. I was 15 years old, living in a bedsit in one of the most dangerous areas in London, working 14 hours a day in a very dangerous area of London, in a quite a dangerous job, really, if you think about it. Now, when I look back, I think a 15-year-old girl in that environment, even just to living on her own, I think, how is that even possible? But at the time, I thought, God, I'm young, I'm free, I'm single, I could do anything. And plus, I could drink. That was great. I had no restrictions on me whatsoever. So, I was doing all right to begin with. And this is when I was 15. So I'd been working at that club for a while, and then there was an incident when I was about 17. There was an incident. We were all out one night and we were drinking and we were doing whatever. And one of the girls went completely paranoid, and it really shook me to my core. It was really awful. And and I just thought then and there, I thought, no, what am I doing with my life? I'm working at the reception of a strip club. I got good grades in school. This is just, you know, for anyone that does that kind of thing, great. I mean, I've got nothing against it. But for me, I thought, well, this isn't really the life I was supposed to have, is it? So I went up north to live with my grandma for a year to go back to school, right? It's very cold up north, and my grandma literally insinuated that she had the audacity to insinuate that I was an alcoholic, right? I don't know if you guys have heard of Harvey's Bristol Cream. It's in a big blue bottle. It's a sherry, right? I told you it's cold in Yorkshire. It's really cold. So anytime I'd go outside, she had a big magnum of it, and anytime I'd go outside, I'd have a big swallow of it, right? And it's especially cold in the morning. So I'd have a big swallow of it. Anyway, my grandma found the empty bottle about a month later and she said, "You're an alcoholic." But she was one of those really strange people. Those people that have like half a glass of sherry on Christmas Day? Really? Like, I've heard somebody call that alcohol abuse, and I agree. I really do. And the other thing I learned, and you guys told me that you guys do this or did this, and I thought, how could I have known that? It must be like a secret thing that we're born with as alcoholics, because she had these 4 bottles. She didn't drink, right? So she had vodka, gin, whiskey, and brandy, or whatever it was. You can just drink from them and top them up with water. Well, I invented that. And then when I came into AN, I told you guys about this amazing thing that I used to do. You're like, oh yeah, did that, been there, done that. But how did you guys know? But you knew. So, we are so resourceful. I mean, look at what happened with COVID. My God. I think the first Zoom meeting was on the day after lockdown, I believe. I wasn't there. I was drunk, but So what happened next is I had done my exams. So I'd gone back to school and done the exams I should have done when I left school a year early. And then I came back down to London and Essex, and I went to college for 2 years. I went to the I went to the University of Westminster. I got a law degree, 3 years there, got a law degree. And then I went on to Brunel University and I got a master's in international law and human rights, right? Now, I'm not saying that to show off. I'm saying that because of this reason, right? This is the mask. This is the face. This is what it looks like on the outside. This is the external things making it look like what a phenomenal life she's got. I mean, I was young, I was beautiful, I had the best boyfriend, I had the best car, I had the best job, I had the best academic success, I had the best flat. I was going to say house. Okay, let's not be ridiculous. This is London prices we're talking. But I had the best flat. I had the best of everything. The world was my oyster. It really was. But you know what? I was dying of alcoholism and nobody knew, not to begin with. It talks in the book about the pitiful, incomprehensible demoralization, the alcoholic life becoming the only normal one. I could not differentiate the truth between the truth and false. I didn't really understand what was it really was. That alcoholic life really was the only normal one. The things I did were bizarre. Like, it wasn't like I went around cheating on people or stealing per se, but I would do things like I'd be having a doctor's appointment. I'd be drinking vodka right in front of him, from a water bottle. Like, just really odd things that you just don't do. Like, just really bizarre. I could not do anything. I don't know when I crossed that invisible line, if there was an invisible line, but slowly but surely, my gradual decline into alcoholism became apparent. The obsession or the persistence of the illusion that I could ever control or enjoy my drinking led me to the gates of insanity and death. How could I control my drinking and enjoy it? How could I enjoy my drinking and control it? I mean, I've never even heard of a normal person attempting to control or enjoy their drinking. It's just not they don't do that, do they? And I mean, I never had control over alcohol. Alcohol always had control over me ever since I discovered it. I discovered this secret. I discovered this thing that nobody ever had to know about. So I thought, this kind of dirty secret that I've got and nobody needs to know about. But I knew as long as I had alcohol by my side and in my system, I would always be all right. That's what I believed. That's what I truly believed. And I always knew I was an alcoholic as well. Like they say, oh, don't know if you're born an alcoholic. I don't care really. Like whether I was born an alcoholic. What I can tell you is that the first time alcohol entered my system, an alcoholic was born. I have to deal with it. So it didn't end there. So basically, after I did my master's I was just wondering the obsession. And there's also something else. I was never trying to stop, really. I was never trying to stop. But even when things got really bad, it reminds me of, in the big book, it says, the baffling feature of alcoholism as we know it, this utter inability to leave it alone, no matter how great the necessity or wish. Now, I'd started to become really ill, but I had no thoughts of even attempting to stop. That never crossed my mind because alcohol was everything to me. I didn't need anyone or anything as long as I had alcohol. I didn't need anything else. So I went to do the bar vocational course to become yeah, I went to become a barrister, with the horsehair wig. That's £1,000, by the way, and you have to pay it from your own pocket. And that was 15 years ago. Anyway, I went to become a barrister. I went to do the course, and it was in Bristol, and these beautiful people were coming from all over the world, like Singapore, Malaysia, Gibraltar, Bangladesh. These were really lovely people coming along for the prestige of getting the wig. And I couldn't even communicate with these people. I'm such a lovely, warm, friendly person. I was at that point where all I could do, I was drinking a litre of vodka a day. And I had been doing for a long time. Now, I know that it's not about the volume or the percentage of what we drink. It's about the loss of power, choice, and control, right? That's what it's about. But as it says in Bill's story, the mind and body are marvelous mechanisms. And mine continued to suffer that agony for many, many more years, not 2 years like Bill, many, many more years. And basically, things weren't working out. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to start a new life. So I did a pretty big geographical. If most of you guys are in America and Canada, I'd say that you're probably the other side of the world to you is China, maybe. Well, the other side of the world to us is Australia. Now, I've probably got that wrong, sorry. But for us in the UK, the other side of the world is Australia. So that's where I moved, like the furthest possible geographical I could do, right? The thing I didn't realize is that I couldn't ever run away from myself because whenever I ran away from myself, I was there when I got there. And whenever I tried to run away from my alcoholism, that came with me too. So I did succeed in starting a new life in Australia. I arrived there, I got 2 full-time jobs, I met who I thought was the love of my life, and I retired when I was 28 years old. Retired. What did I retire to do? Nothing. I retired to drink. So as I said, a litre of vodka every single day. And it was just a Groundhog Day, absolute Groundhog Day for years. I think it was about 6 or 7 years. Towards the end of that 6, 7 years, my partner became very unwell and I became his full-time carer. And when I say like everything, I mean nappies or diapers, as you call them, diapers, medication, blood sugar, blood pressure, specialized diet, specialized drinks, all of that. And I protected his pride and I protected his dignity. I made him feel really loved, really valued, and I didn't let the diaper situation or anything, that's just practical things, we don't dwell upon them. we tried to maintain the person's pride and dignity, right? At the end of 10 months, my partner died, and he died in my arms. And I was so happy that he died in my arms, because he always told me that his biggest fear in life was to die alone, because his father had died alone. And he didn't. He died in my arms, and I feel very blessed about that. But as I told you, I'm really good at getting deported. So what happened next? I got deported. You see, I'm an expert at getting deported. But was that the time that I thought, I know, I'll come back home. I'll come back to the UK and sort out my life. Don't be ridiculous. I'm an alcoholic in full flight. I went to live in Southeast Asia with a psychopath, right? This guy, you know, it says in Bill's story, ominous warning, I failed to heed. This guy was chucked in the back of an Australian police van naked because he had battered me and beaten me so badly. Yet I chose to go and live in Cambodia and Vietnam with this guy. The most dangerous areas there is where I lived. And I don't even remember what happened over there. I was over there for over a year. At some point, I actually came back to the UK for something like 48 hours to my ex-partner, who, after an argument, told me to F off, and I jumped back on the next plane to Cambodia. I barely even remember that. Insane, just absolute insanity. And I don't even, like I said, I don't really know what happened over there. What I know is that there was one of those knives like that. I think it's called a machete. There was blood all over the ceiling. All I know is whatever happened over there was not anything positive. And I guess it must have been quite traumatizing, because I can't really remember any of it. And that's not really about the alcoholism. I literally can't remember anything that happened over there. There was a lot of visa runs and stuff, like you have to cross the border on a bike or whatever to get something stamped here. It's very, very odd. It's a third world country, and it's very, very dangerous. Anyway, the next thing I remember is about a year after that, being pushed through Heathrow Airport arrivals hall by two massive security guards. I weigh less than 50 kilos, which is about the weight of like an 8 or 9-year-old child. I'm in a wheelchair. I can't understand where I've come from, where I've been. I don't even remember being on an international flight, let alone two. All I've got on me is my passport, a $5 American note, dollar note, and the clothes that I was wearing. That's it. And I was home. Like, I was home, but I was homeless. And I was homeless for a while, and then I just carried on, you know, another 7 years of complete just Groundhog Day, a litre of vodka a day. As I said, I know it's not relevant. The reason I mention it, though, is because my body should have finished. Like, I should have been gone years ago with that amount of alcohol. At the end of the day, alcohol is actually poison, you know, and for us to continue to drink is to die. But I didn't know. I had the delusion. I knew I was an alcoholic, and I thought that one day I'd die an old lady in my bed. I'd just go to sleep one night and not wake up. Little did I know that alcoholism is one of the most horrific, agonizing deaths that there truly is, you know? And that's something else. So, as I said, I went on another 7 years, and then I was on the way back from my uncle's funeral in February 2023. And when I got back, you know, a few people on this meeting know me, and they know that I don't sugarcoat anything, because there's no point. I would be doing you a disservice, you know, if I was to say, and it was a bit like this and a bit like that, and then I recovered. No, because it wasn't. I got back, my abdomen was really, really swollen. My legs, my ankles, my feet were really swollen, and blood was oozing out the back of me. Like, blood was gushing out of the back of me. I didn't understand what that was, but I was rushed to hospital in an ambulance. And I got to the hospital. I was admitted immediately. Yet, you know, it says in Bill's story, I still thought I could control the situation. I still thought I could control the situation. I was still going across the road every day to buy more vodka. Anyway, one of these times, I was in the bathroom, and I remember coming out of the bathroom and looking up at this wall, and it was just a plain wall. And I remember just having this immense feeling of doom or dread. I can't quite put my finger on it, but it was a horrifying feeling. It was almost like I felt God, or I can't even put my finger on what that feeling was. Apart from that, it was a sense of doom. Now, my brother, who's 25, he's a nurse, and he works with people who are dying every day. And he says that when the person's conscious, they have like this feeling of dread or this feeling of doom. It's a natural bodily process. that people go through if they're conscious. I didn't know that at the time. But what I did do, something compelled me to do this. Like I said, I had all these bottles and they were all full of vodka. So I took them in my big handbag. By the way, any female with a big handbag, if you've got any suspicions, that's why we use them. Oh, we use them for other things these days, but So I went to the other bathroom, the disabled bathroom, and I was trying my best to swallow the best I could. But of course, my body was rejecting the alcohol because I was dying of alcoholism, but I didn't know that. I thought I had cellulitis or gout or a blood clot because of the coach journey. That's what I thought. And I remember looking in the mirror and I remember tears were streaming down my face because of the pure alcohol that I was trying to swallow. And then what I did next is I just washed out the bottles, washed them out vigorously, and I pulled up the trash from the trash can and I put the bottles at the bottom, covered them up with the trash to hide the evidence. Why? Because I didn't want the evidence to be found when I died. I knew that that was my last drink ever, because that was it for me. I had this feeling of doom and that was it. And you know what? That feeling was real. That feeling was absolutely real, because 1 week later, I woke up in the intensive care unit of St. Mary's Hospital in Paddington in London, completely different hospital. What I later learned is that I had gone into, basically my body had put itself into a coma. My liver had stopped, the ammonia had flooded my brain, and I ended up with hepatic encephalopathy. And basically my body went into a coma in order to start shutting down the organs. And that's why I was transferred by ambulance, completely unconscious, obviously, to the intensive care unit of this more specialized hospital. When I woke up, there was this beautiful woman looking at me, and she had blonde hair and bangs, I think you call them, and glasses. And she was so beautiful. She looked like an angel. Like, I say an angel, but, she looked like a teacher or a nurse. That lady was my mum. She said, "Darling, it's Mummy. Can you see me? Can you see me, darling?" My death was so imminent that my mum was called from where she lived in the country. My dad, remember, who my mum left when I was 2 years old, he came from where he was in the country. My best friend, who's Polish, she jumped on a plane from Poland with her husband and her son. And she couldn't get there within the 24 hours that the doctor suggested. So she sent her sister, who was living down the road in Bristol, 2 hours away. And her sister came and sat with my mum while I was in this coma so that my mum wasn't alone. And my friend asked her sister to play "That's What Friends Are For" by Dionne Warwick on YouTube, because she was sure I could hear it. I thought I never harmed anybody with my alcoholism. I didn't cheat on anybody. I didn't steal. I wasn't physically violent. What on earth did I possibly put my loved ones through? The doctor told me that I had end-stage liver failure, kidney failure, and I had a 5 to 8% chance to live. He said that I might not die today, but I will die tomorrow or the day after. I'm not going to be here at the end of the week. I was paralyzed from the neck down. I couldn't sit, stand, eat, drink, walk. I couldn't go to the toilet. I was in a nappy, but I was in a diaper, but even the diaper wouldn't really work because my stomach, my abdomen and my legs were so swollen that they were actually stuck together. So the diaper thing was just like on the bed, because there was nothing that they could do apart from feed me as much lactulose as possible, to try to get as many toxins out of the body as they could. But there was nothing more that they could do. And I don't know. When I look back, I think at 4 o'clock in the morning in the intensive care unit, I believe I did my step 1, 2, and 3. It took me to be dying of alcoholism to realize that my life was unmanageable. I was powerless over alcohol. Step 2, I came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. I couldn't. I was aware of my limitations. The doctors had told me their limitations. The doctors said it would take a miracle for me to live. I had 5 to 8% chance to live. They said it would take a miracle. What is a miracle? A miracle is a happy or positive demonstration or event that cannot otherwise be explained other than by divine intervention, right? So even the doctors were saying it was going to take God. Every time I read Dr. Silkworth's opinion, the doctor's opinion, it's so clear to me what he's trying to say. The powers of good that lay outside our synthetic knowledge are the powers of God that lay outside our synthetic knowledge. God bless that man. That man and his contribution to Alcoholics Anonymous, even when Bill had his, white lightning experience, And Dr. Silkworth said, whatever it is, you better hang on to it because anything's better than what you were like. If he hadn't have said that, God only knows if we'd be sat here right now. I am so grateful for those two men and everyone who came before, all of those cosmic coincidences that occurred. Step 3, I made a decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of God as I understood him. I didn't understand him. I don't understand him now. I'll probably never understand him. Who am I to understand who God is, you know?